Let us understand how you can take care of loading data into Postgres database running using Docker container. If you have a Docker container setup with Postgres, you can actually follow these steps to actually experiment with data loading utility, which is nothing but a copy command in Postgres. You need to ensure that a database is created along with the user with right permissions. Also, the user who want to use copy command need to have pg_read_server_files role assigned. It will give some additional permissions due to which the user will be able to load the data. If you want, you can use Postgres user directly and you should be able to load the data, but I would highly suggest to use non-super users to experiment these things. Here are the high level steps. You need to create file with sample data. Then you have to copy file into Docker container. You need to connect to database, create the table, run copy command to copy the data. If you don't have the database and user, you need to ensure that you create the database user and also grant permissions on the database to user and also grant the role pg read server files to that user so that the user can be leveraged to run copy command to copy the data into the table. First, let's prepare the data. The sample file in this case is added to users.csv under this location. I am just copying these few records into a folder called as smsdb. So I just created the folder, switching to that folder. Now I am creating the file called as users.csv. I am using VI editor, pasted here. If you are not comfortable with VI editor, what you can do is you can use Nano editor. Nano is a bit easier to manage compared to VI for MHUs within Linux. So with Nano, you can say nano users.csv like this, paste it, and then you can say Control X, capital Y to say yes, and then hit enter. Control X, capital Y, and hit enter. It will save the file and come out of it. Now you can validate by saying cat users.csv, and you can see that everything is copied appropriately. Now the file is copied into the host. However, we need to ensure that the file is also copied to the Docker container so that I can use copy utility to copy the file. So when it comes to the copy command, it requires you to use only the local files that are there on the container. You can't copy the data in the files using copy command when the files are on the other servers than the server where the Postgres is running. So in this case, Postgres is running in Docker container, and hence we have to copy the files into the Docker container. Now, this is the command which you can use. I am just copying to temp folder in the Docker container. We have to specify the container name here. The container name is nothing but itv_pg, then colon, then /tmp. Now I can copy this and paste it here. Now the file is copied. You can validate by saying docker exec-it itv_pg, which is nothing but our container name, ls-ltr/tmp/users.csv, and you can see the file here. As the file is copied, now we can use copy command by connecting to pSQL. However, we have to follow several steps before getting there. Once we run docker cp to copy the file, we can actually run this to connect to Postgres as a super user. This is required to create our database username and also granting permissions to user from the database and also assign the role to the user. So this will take care of creating the database itversity_sms_db. If you want to give a different name, you can use a different name, but I'm using itversity_sms_db here. Now the database is created. Now I am creating user called as itversity_sms user with password. It took care of creating the user. Now I am granting all on database itversity_sms_db to itversity_sms_user. So I can copy this. So itversity_sms_user will be able to create tables in this database, drop tables in the database, add indexes to the tables in the database, so on and so forth. All aspects of database objects can be taken care by this user on this database. That's what grant all is all about. However, the grant all on database does not suffice to run copy command to copy files into the database tables. For that, you have to run this command, and it will take care of granting the required permissions to run copy commands to copy data from files into the database tables. Once you grant this, now you can come out of this and you can actually connect to the database using the new user created. However, you should be able to use Postgres user itself directly to copy the data using copy command, but I do not recommend to use super user for such kind of activities. Just to make sure that you understand the relevance of roles, permissions, users, database, etc., I would highly suggest to experiment using non-super users. In this case, I am connecting to database using itversity underscore sms underscore user, attaching to database itversity underscore sms underscore db. And it will prompt for the password. I have to enter the password here. The password is nothing but sms underscore password. Now I am connected to the database using the psql utility from my host into the container. Now the connection is from my host into the container. Even though I'm not connected directly on the container, still I should be able to use the copy command as long as the file is on the server on the specified location. So in this case, the file is under /tmp in the container, and hence I should be able to run the copy command without any issues. You can see here, I have validated by saying docker exec -it, the container name ls-ltr, which means we have validated on the container to ensure that the users.csv is existing under /tmp. However, now using psql, I am connected from the host into the container. Okay, even though I do not get into the container to connect to psql from the container directly, still I should be able to use copy command. It will only check on the container's temp folder when I say copy from /tmp/users.csv. If the file exists, it will work. If the file doesn't exist, it will fail. Now let's run the create table command first to create the table. It will take care of creating the table under itversity underscore sms underscore db database. Now I can leverage this copy command to copy the data into the table. Now the copy is successful. You can see 5 records here. So even though there are 9 columns here and our data contain only 5 columns, still it works. For the other columns, it will either use default values or null values. If there are no default values specified for fields like user password and all, there are no default values specified. In that case, it will populate with nulls. With respect to user ID, it will assign sequence generated numbers. For fields like is active, created date, etc., it will set the default values that are specified. Now as the data is copied, we should be able to run select star from users to validate the data is copied successfully. And you can see here the user ID is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. You can see here, even though the data doesn't have, these are automatically assigned. For fields like created date, you can actually see the default date. I think created date is there as part of the data. That's why you are seeing the dates here. For is active, it is saying F because the default is false. It is of type boolean. That's why it is saying F, even though is active is not part of our dataset. So this is how you can leverage your Docker container to experiment with utilities like copy. Just ensure that you have to copy the files into the Docker container. However, either by using SQL Alchemy or by using psql, you should be able to connect from the remote machine and you should be able to run the commands as long as data is available on the container or the server on which Postgres is running. So that being said, if you have any questions around this, please let us know. If not, you need to wait until all the core concepts are covered before we get into the details about strategizing the data migration from one database to other database, considering several other scenarios.